This is my PC, and this is a video about what it is and how it performs before I start upgrading it when the next generation of GPUs and CPUs are released. It has a fractal design Define R5 case, which I've had for over 5 years. No window, because I like the idea of keeping the radio frequency interference inside the case. As you can see, I like the brown Noctua fans. The CPU is a Ryzen 5 2600 because it was good enough at the time. The motherboard is an Asus Strix X470F Gaming. The GPU is a Gigabyte 1080 Ti. I like the front panel HDMI connector for VR, but for some reason it never worked properly. The power supply is an EVGA Supernova 850 watt 80 plus gold that's even older than the case. I have 32 gigabytes of Corsair 3200 memory. It's nothing special, and for some reason I've only been able to get it stable at 2866 MHz. I don't know why. I've tried removing and swapping the sticks and can only suppose it's the memory controller on the CPU or the motherboard. I have a couple of hard disks and a couple of Samsung SATA SSDs. To top it off, I have a Wooting keyboard, a glorious Model O- mouse, a Stream Deck, and a completely boring old Asus 1080p IPS monitor. Let's see how it performs. First I ran TimeSpy and got an overall score of 8802, comprising a GPU score of 9639 and a CPU score of 5901. I also tried TimeSpy Extreme, since upgrades might make more of a difference here, and got 3895. This makes my PC better than 37% of all PCs out there. In Cinebench, the CPU scores 2749 points. The Ashes of the Singularity benchmark at 1080p with mid-range settings gets between 49 and 85 FPS. I use the free DaVinci Resolve, so no GPU encoding acceleration, and it's highly variable, but here I am getting 80 frames per second rendering one of my son's Fortnite videos. Virtual reality is one of the main drivers for upgrading. I have an Oculus Rift CV1 and plans to upgrade that. In Half-Life Alyx, at high fidelity settings, I see frame times of 7 or 8 milliseconds, which means a very reliable 90 frames per second, which is ideal. In XPlane it's more complicated. My settings are very low. In the wilderness of Papua New Guinea, SteamVR reports what look like good frame times, but MSI Afterburner seems to think I'm getting about 80-ish frames a second. In Chicago Meigs Field, with all the buildings, I am locked permanently in ASW at 45 frames per second, but the frame times reported by Afterburner suggest I'm not managing that all the time. And I see some effects of this, and that can be uncomfortable. With 2 intake and 1 exhaust fans, noise is minimal, and even at ambient temperature of over 27 Celsius, British summer with no air conditioning, the GPU doesn't get above 76C and the CPU normally never reaches 50. In all, the PC can still do anything at 1080p, but I'm starting to want more pixels and more frames for both monitor and VR gaming. Lots of new toys are about to become available.